Hey there, kids. Welcome in. It's just after high noon, 12:04 to be precise. My name is Matt Murphy, and this is Super Talk 99.7 WTN and the Matt Murphy Show. Conveniently enough, it's Wednesday, October 25, 2023. Allow me to get the pleasantries out of the way. We'll get things lumbering under its own weight. It is episode 441 of the proceedings today. Pleased that you've decided to join us. We'll talk about the various platforms with which you can take us wherever you might go over the course of the next 3 hours, all afternoon long. Truly, as we have information-fueled and opinion-driven news talk radio for the masses on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm here till 3, as mentioned, 615-737-9986. If you desire to be a part of the show at any point during the proceedings, that's a good number to start. You can either dial us up via that number on the talk line and speak directly, or indirectly through the super text line 615-737-9986. There are other ways to communicate with the broadcast, obviously. You can find us on social media platforms, any one of your choosing. Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on a variety of different places. Just look up Matt Murphy or at Matt Murphy Show, specifically on Twitter or X, however you want to say it. We are there and available to you. What?
I saw a meme yesterday, and you know how if you want to know how to pronounce something, you can punch it into Google, and you'll have that voice.
Oh, yeah.
It said how to pronounce X, and the voice went Twitter.
Amen. No question. I mean, yeah, I don't understand. At some point, are we going to stop saying formerly known as Twitter?
No.
I mean, because that's what everyone does.
And there was the dumbest rebranding in history of rebranding.
I mean, and I don't know that Elon Musk cares, but you're right. It is the dumbest. I mean, you call it an X post instead of a tweet now. I mean, well, you can if you want to. But every time anyone mentions, well, you know, Matt Murphy said so-and-so on X, comma, formerly known as Twitter, comma, you might as well brand it X, formerly known as Twitter. It reminds me of Prince, is what it reminds me of. Remember when Prince became the symbol?
Artist formerly known as Prince.
Right.
Yeah. And that was literally his pronunciation of that symbol, was the artist formerly known as Prince.
Well, let's laugh to keep from crying, as what's going on in Washington, D.C. will make you shed a few. Mike Johnson is set to become the Speaker of the House of Representatives if he is to get the votes, which are set to commence momentarily. Mike Johnson, not to be confused with my Johnson. What? Well, if Mike Johnson can get the 200...
For gosh sake, watch your language.
If Mike can't get the 217 votes, it's my understanding that Harry Butts is next in line to be Speaker of the House. Also, there's a Hawaiian contingent that is supporting Representative Icy Morehair. Remember that? Up the River of No Return by I.P. Freely.
We have entered the Bart Simpson phase of the show.
Well, I mean, you know, what am I supposed to do here? Last night, all across America, people who have talk shows and podcasts and, you know, people who are supposed to know things, these talking heads on the social medias, these talking heads on the mainstream media networks, all of them are looking up Mike Johnson. Some of them mistakenly put in My Johnson, and they went to a different website, I can assure you. And no, 5300, I'm not going to say your suggestion. That one would probably get me kicked off the radio. Lindsey Graham,
Don't.
Just don't. I didn't say
don't.
it. I had 8523 said it on the super text line.
Stop it.
What? Lindsey Graham's whipping votes for Mike Johnson. He's whipping for. Oh, this is the I've not had enough sleep and I'm really, really tired of this phase of the proceedings. So the votes have begun, and Hakeem Jeffries and Mike Johnson are the only ones thus far receiving votes. So there is a floor vote ongoing to elect a Speaker of the House. It's the fourth such ballot. This is the fourth nominee presented by the Republican Party, who are in the majority still in the House of Representatives. It is expected, by all accounts, that Mike Johnson of Louisiana will be the next Speaker of the House. Whoever had Mike Johnson on your bingo card, please come to the front of the line, to the cashier station, as we have your winnings ready for you. As I said last evening, one, I'm not going to pretend to you that I had any idea who Mike Johnson was prior to yesterday. I did not. I had a vague recollection of the guy during the 2020 election debacle because he was one of the few that were willing to stand up and say all of this that is going on isn't right and we should expect more in the American electoral experience than what we experienced in 2020. And there's nothing wrong with that, no matter how many mainstream media outlets are preparing to tell you that Mike Johnson is some sort of insurrectionist or whatever. They need to go to pound sand. Go to pound sand. Because these same individuals that are rushing to microphones to tell you that Mike Johnson is some form of insurrectionist because he filed and supported a lawsuit challenging the validity of the 2020 election cycle. By the way, that's the way the process should work. That's the way it should work. And these same individuals either were a part of or supportive of the push in 2016 that Donald Trump was not a legitimately elected president of the United States of America. Garbage. But I want to reset something real quick, and I did a little of this last night. One, I don't pretend to know Mike Johnson. I rely on third parties to tell me what I need to know about him. Third-party scorecards and whatnot. Oh, he's an A with this organization. He's a 98% with that organization. He's a 28% with this organization, whatever. But I don't need to know a lot of those things. I don't need to know a lot of policy positions that Mike Johnson has. That's up to his constituents. What I want to know is he going to follow regular order? Is he going to present a budget every year? Is he going to get our financial house in order? Is he going to stop the overspending that we're seeing in Washington, D.C.? Everything else is small potatoes to me. What about you? What about you? I have every anticipation, and I mentioned this to Bell before the show began, to mark it. Just to mark it down in a moment in time. I said, this is the one, right? They're not going beyond this. It just feels like everyone's exhausted with the process at this point. The embarrassment has worn off, and now it's just a shambles up there in D.C. And so the expectation is that Mike Johnson will be your next Speaker of the House. I'll give you the rundown as to who he is and answer any questions that you have for, as far as I know the answers to them. In the meantime, behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speaker sounds as good as humanly possible, it is Bel K on this episode 441. You can find us on the airwaves at 99.7 FM, 100,000 watts of power. You can also find us on a variety of different internet streaming platforms, really whatever platform of your choosing. If you type in Supertalk 99.7 WTN, we will be there. And if we are not there, tell me, and I'll make sure we do get there. We're also on Supertalk TV for you masochists in the listening audience. If you would like to view the proceedings, well, here we are on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and we thank you for being out there. Episode 441 on the talk side of things, on the television side of things, is entitled
Matt Murphy Show. It's the Barbie movie on steroids, but with more pink. Noon to 3 p.m.
I was wearing some fetching pink shorts the other day.
Yes, you
on
were.
The golf course.
No, you also have those pair that you wear into the office on a semi-regular
That's the
basis.
ones that I had on the golf course the other day.
When you were hanging out with the Gatlin brothers.
Well, and you know what Rudy Gallon said to me?
Nice pants.
He said, not everybody can pull off pink shorts. And you
are not one of them.
You're one of them that can't pull off. Yeah, basically. He made comment. I said, look, if you can't play the part, look the part. And this gives people a strong indication that I know what I'm doing on the golf course, which is not true. We have Franklin, Tennessee results for mayor and alderman for those who are concerned about that. There's the story involving John Drake, the police chief of the Metro Nashville Police Department. It is just a sad situation all the way around. Sad that his family's going through that. John Drake Jr., of course, shot 2 police officers. Thank God those officers, it looks like they're going to be okay in the grand scheme of things. Cameron Smith will give us his take on soon-to-be Speaker Mike Johnson coming up at 2 o'clock this afternoon. We had scheduled, as I mentioned on social media, we had scheduled Representative Mark Green. Amazing how quickly the news cycle can move from time to time. I scheduled Mark Green like a week ago or whatever it was, with every anticipation that it would probably get moved. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just telling you the truth. I schedule Mark Green and it gets canceled. I schedule Mark Green, it gets canceled. I schedule him, it gets canceled. I'm not casting aspersions. I'm not saying that they don't have very important things to do. I'm not saying I don't like Congressman Mark Green. I am telling you what happens. I'm pulling the curtain back and telling you that based on his schedule, it is very, very difficult to get him on air. And that doesn't bother me. It bothers me only in as much as I know that the people of the 7th Congressional District, his representative district, want to hear from him. And so it bothers me in that regard. Other than that, it's all well and good. We had him scheduled for 12:45 this afternoon, and it looks like he'll be voting as that comes around. So I think we've got him for tomorrow now. I think that's right. I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think he just responded to me and said that tomorrow's looking better. So we'll keep you up to date with that. No Mark Green today. I announced it on social media, but new to say its schedule is subject to change based on votes, and votes are ongoing right now. Speaking of the votes, can we get this lady first? I love her. I'm going to miss her when we don't have her on my television on a daily basis. I don't know who she is. I think she's like the sergeant at arms? Is she the clerk of the court?
I think she's the clerk of the court.
Okay. All right. Well, the clerk of the house, I guess it would be, not the court.
Yeah.
And she's currently doing the old roll call. Let's get the roll call up there. Only votes for Jeffries and Johnson so far. Let's listen in. Oh, we'll get Desjardins? Oh, we will. Well, maybe. If we do, we'll get him here.
Missed him. Oh,
Boom!
There he is. I was wrong.
Oh, you heard it there. Johnson! Wow! Right! That's great. Desjardins voted for a big Johnson.
I'm leaving.
Dingle didn't go for Johnson.
Dingle didn't vote for Johnson.
We're all 13 again. Oh, Dingle was afraid of Johnson. I don't know why we're applauding. Okay, so. Oh, just shut up with the speeches and get it over with, will you? It's been 3.5 weeks, for goodness sake. Okay, so as that is going on, we'll keep the vote total. What you need to know is that thus far there have been no Republicans that have voted for anyone other than Mike Johnson. Who is Representative Mike Johnson? Well, I'm glad you asked. The reason I'm glad you asked is I worked hard finding out who he was last evening so that I could relate it to you today. And I'm not afraid to tell you this. I don't know who the guy is. He obviously is a supporter of Donald J. Trump. He was first elected to the House of Representatives in 2016. He serves as vice chairman of the House Republican Conference, as well as a GOP deputy whip in an assistant leadership role. He is an attorney. He understands constitutional law. That's a gold star in his ledger. Johnson also joined a group of House Republicans in voting to sustain an objection to the electoral votes of January 6th, as is his right, as many Democrats have done before him, but some major media outlets will not let you know that. During Trump's first impeachment trial in January of 2020, Johnson, along with a group of other GOP lawmakers, served as his Senate impeachment team. In other words, they defended him, as is Trump's right, in the Senate trial that ensued after his House impeachment. I'm certain liberals won't like that very much. Johnson also sent an email from his personal email account in 2020. This is coming from CNN. Hashtag never CNN, by the way. I'll watch and read this garbage so you don't have to. To every House Republican soliciting signatures for an amicus brief in the Texas lawsuit seeking to invalidate the Electoral College votes from multiple states. So Johnson will be your next speaker. He is 51 years of age. And I think it's important at this point to recognize that whatever position that he has on individual issues is really of no consequence in his role as speaker, except to say that the speaker controls the gavel. And obviously controlling the gavel and controlling the calendar has its own level of responsibility and authority that goes along with it. The expectation that I have for Speaker Johnson when he is seated is that he will follow the law, that he will follow the rules as set forth by the House of Representatives, and that he will get the basic job done for the American people. What does that mean? That means get your budgets passed in time. Now, I don't think Johnson as Speaker and the House of Representatives as a body has a snowball's chance in Hades of passing the rest of the appropriations bills before the clock ticks out just before the week before Thanksgiving. I don't think it has any shot of happening. But I am willing to give Speaker Johnson and the rest of the Republicans at least a certain modicum of discretionary authority in the short term if it means that they regain the advantages lost over the last month in the long term. Does that make sense to everyone? They've looked like a bunch of bumbling knuckleheads for the last 3 and 4 weeks. They have. And now it's time to figure out if we can regain some of that trust that the American people bestowed on them when they sent them up there and put them in the majority in the first place. In the meantime, Roberta says, you're too funny today, Matt. Roberta, I have to laugh to keep from crying, and you have to laugh. I just find it, I'll talk about this after the break. It is so amusing to me, the number of people, and I'm not talking about, I was listening to a little bit of Johnny B. I heard a little bit of Chris Hand, and we've all been just upfront and honest with our assessment of what's going on. But I'm talking more of the national pundits that are getting in front of cameras today and pretending that they know everything there is to know about Mike Johnson when I know very well they Googled him last night like I did. If you're not from the state of Alabama, I wouldn't expect you to know who Gary Palmer was. If you're not from the state of Tennessee, you probably aren't up on Mark Green or Scott Desjardins or Tim Burchett. And if you're not from the state of Louisiana, I seriously doubt you know who the hell Mike Johnson is. And I'm sorry that I'm I'm in 7th grade and I'm 13 years old right now, because every time I say Mike Johnson, I think and it makes me giggle. You got to laugh to keep from crying. 2637 says, this is the content that I'm here for today. Well, this is what we got. This is what Melba Toast packed in our lunchbox earlier today. All right, as we go to break, Johnson has 90 votes, 91 now. Hakeem Jeffries will get all the Democrats. He's up to 72 as we speak. No one else has any vote for Speaker of the House, and we're already, 160? So we're about a third of the way through. Looks like Johnson is well on his way to become the next Speaker of the House. It's 12:23 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, we're in open enrollment right now for many of you, and there are two kinds: one for people in small businesses that have to buy their own medical insurance, and the other for those eligible for Medicare. Pat Davis and his team at yourhealthplanman.com can help you with both. I've sat down with Pat and talked to him about the way that he does business, and it really is almost a health care plan concierge, if you will. When planning health insurance for you and your family, you need to consult with someone who understands what they're doing, who understands the variety of plans available to you, and understands which plan is best for you. You need somebody in your corner, and Pat Davis and his team at Your Health Plan Man, they are those people in your corner and have been for a long, long time. Now, it takes a call from you. You talk to Pat and his team, and they'll lay out a strategy in terms of what to do, how to understand what options are in front of you. They make sure that you're protected. There's no obligation when you call, by the way. And if you already have the best insurance possible, if you're in the best situation possible, here's the nice thing. Pat and their team, they'll tell you that as well. Affordable Care Act and medical cost sharing plans have high deductibles. They require you to spend thousands of dollars out of your pocket before they cover anything. If this is a concern for you, call Pat Davis and Your Health Plan Man. YourHealthPlanMan.com is the website for more information. YourHealthPlanMan.com or 855-4-PLAN-MAN. 855-475-2662 for Your Health Plan Man. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you. You know, guys, we just don't worry about some numbers that we ought to worry about. It is a fact when it comes to our health that men ignore health issues. We ignore signs of health problems more so than the ladies in our life and more than we really should. So if you're feeling tired, sluggish, or run down, if you don't feel yourself, if you are avoiding certain activities in your life, like yard work, like going to the gym, or even bedroom activities with the significant other in your life. Well, gentlemen, I want you to get to the Tennessee Men's Clinic. I don't want you to whistle past that graveyard any longer. It's time to find out some of these numbers that you need to know. You know, numbers like your blood pressure, numbers like your cholesterol level, numbers like your T level. Because if those numbers have been affected over the years in your life, and a lot of those numbers go down naturally as you live your life, we can get them back up again naturally and get you back to that energy, back to that vitality that you deserve at your age. Give the Tennessee Men's Clinic an opportunity to do this for you. TennesseeMen'sClinic.com is the website. TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Here's the number. 2 locations, by the way, this serve. One's in Midtown Nashville. The other's in Cool Springs in Franklin. Give them a call at 615-208-9090. 208-9090 for Tennessee Men's Clinic. Boy, we have to watch out for the super text line today. Got to be careful there. Super text line up and running. Phone lines up and running. 615-737-9986. Any reaction to Mike Johnson? Mike Johnson. I feel like I stayed up all night last night, and I promise I didn't. I feel like I've not had any sleep. I'm just ready for all of this to be over. I want to see Mike Johnson standing before the American people as Speaker. And it looks like that is about to occur. Johnson now has 127 votes as we continue the roll call. Hakeem Jeffries, as expected, will get all the Democrat votes. He's up to 106 at this stage. No other candidate has any other votes, which bodes well for Mike Johnson and his opportunity to serve as Speaker of the House.
So how many can he lose with only 400? How many?
I think he can lose 4.
But there's 4 members missing.
And that might mean that he can lose 5.
Okay.
I think he has to get to 216 with the 4 members missing. I believe, but I was told there would be no math. So there's that. All right, for the background information that you desire, Johnson earned a bachelor's degree and a law degree from LSU, Louisiana State. Sadly, he's probably a fan of the LSU Tigers. Oh, well, not everyone's perfect. Johnson was a state representative for a couple of years. He was elected to the halls of Congress in 2016, rose through the ranks. People that I know that know him say he is a staunch conservative. He's a good man. He serves on the House Armed Services Committee. He previously served a term as chairman of the Republican Study Committee. I spoke briefly with my friend Gary Palmer about Mike Johnson last evening, and he said that he is a good man and that he will be a great speaker. He did not go so far as to say, yes, we got my first choice, as some have now suggested, considering that we're on the 4th choice. And yes, 3180, I see you there. I see what you've said about being elected Speaker and the gavel, and I'm not going to repeat any other part of that super text. But it's funny. It's funny. Okay, let me hear a little. I want some of this before we get over. Mm-hmm. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. I'm just trying to figure out where we are in the alphabet. Close to Ogles. Maybe we can stay here and hear Ogles scream out his name. Where are we? We on the ends? There's probably a lot of ends.
Sit down. Oh, look, they listened.
Yeah. We're never getting to the O's. Let's get to a break. Your calls, your thoughts coming up, plus other matters going on in the news. We will speak on the sad situation involving the Metro Nashville Police Chief John Drake coming up in a couple of minutes. Also, the results of the Franklin mayor's race. Sanity in Franklin, Tennessee. Imagine that. That's upcoming as well. 1233 on Super Talk. I'm so excited. I just can't stand it. Mike Johnson's doing so well.
That's what she said.
170. That's the number of votes he's gotten so far. Hakeem Jeffries has gotten 152, but that was to be expected. Jim Jordan's gotten no votes. Kevin McCarthy's gotten no votes. Nobody else has gotten any other votes. By now, this was all done in the last several rounds of voting. But it seems like this is the one that will get across the finish line, as Mike Johnson will be the next Speaker of the House. No one really knew who he was up until fairly recently. One more little opportunity for us to join on this, and then I'm going to move on to a few other things after I tell you exactly my take on what the Speaker of the House does. So just give me a little audio of this. This is fascinating to me. There's Chip Roy. Oh, we're in the R's now. We're about there. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll pot that down for a minute. We'll let them continue their votes. We will talk about this briefly. We'll get any of your thoughts on the super text line or the phone line, 615-737-9986. And when they get around to the final votes, we'll play that for you live on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, because why not? Looks like Johnson will take up the gavel. Are you looking at the super text line? Can I read 5413s?
No. Actually, you can. Dan's in L.A.
It just says it doesn't seem like anybody's going to beat Mike Johnson today. Mike Johnson today.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a true statement.
That is a true statement. Mike Johnson got it done. Well, good for you. Congratulations to you and Mr. Johnson.
Ogles went for Johnson, 78-30. That's a little rude. Oh, never mind.
Look, it's some are suggesting that Johnson was laying in wait. He was, being the big Johnson that he is, he was just waiting to reel him in, like fish on a hook. Ogles went for Johnson. Can't wait to see Mike Johnson.
Don't.
What are all of us for?
Don't make me bleep. Do not make me bleep the host.
No, do not taunt Happy Fun Ball.
Do not taunt Happy Fun Ball.
Mike Johnson has 183 votes, 184 votes now. Hakeem Jeffries with 167. The key votes that we're watching to see if there are any others voting for other people, and they've not voted for other people. And we've gotten through the Chip Roys of the world and the Matt Gaetzes of the world and the Andy Biggs of the world. So it looks like we will see a successful conclusion to the Speaker ballot. All of this began, of course, with Kevin McCarthy not fulfilling his word after granting members of the body the ability to make a motion singularly to vacate. Now, forget for a moment, I know it's impossible to do so, but forget for a moment that it was Matt Gaetz that did this. It was always going to be Matt Gaetz that did this. And while I'm very frustrated with the nonsense that we've been put through, thank you very much to Matt Gaetz, I would say that it's ultimately Kevin McCarthy that put himself in that position, especially when he did not fulfill his promises as made in this past January. But as I said to all of you on social media last evening, and if you're not following me on social media, you're doing it wrong. Follow me at Matt Murphy Show on the X, also known as Twitter, when I asked or when I made this statement. Hey, guys, during these trying times, it's healthy and good to hold together as a community and as a country. Let's comment below and share all the many ways not having a Speaker of the House over these 3 weeks has directly affected our hardworking lives. And then I put hashtag eye roll emoji. Here are some of the responses. So tell me all of the many ways not having a Speaker of the House has directly affected your life. My friend Steve Abramowitz from Mill Creek View. No money sent to Ukraine lately. Smut Dog writes, other than me getting angry and yelling at the radio, television, or at the air while listening to my earbuds at work, nothing. Anderson for Alabama said, well. Gabe says, hang on, let me think of something. Still thinking. Russ says, if we can't print more money, our debt doesn't go up. Inflation might start to level out. Also, no new taxes, maybe? Grumpy says, hasn't affected me in the least. They can't do anything. They can't mess it up any worse. Mark says, it's never been better. Let the chaos continue. Daniel, the country is functioning just fine without a Speaker of the House. The point is, the point I'm making is not that obviously we need a Speaker of the House, and we need one sooner rather than later in order to get things done. My point is that just as Washington, D.C. wants you to believe that they are the epicenter of the universe, they are not. Our lives move on, and we function in spite of government, not because of it. Let me say it again. The United States of America functions in spite of our government in so many ways, not because of our government. We don't grind to a halt when our government grinds to a halt, for goodness sake. It was never the design of the Founding Fathers that our federal government would be this intimately involved in every aspect of our daily lives. And I think we on talk radio are partially responsible for it. Because we on talk radio saw discussion about the federal government as easy, low-hanging fruit. I wasn't born at night or last night. But I've been around the block a time or two. And I see over the last 25 years the manner in which the federal government has taken a front and center seat in our lives, in every aspect of our lives, and it's not supposed to be that way. And the Democrats got it so good, man. They have it so good because they can convince emotionally charged people that they're the only ones that care about you, and they can vote themselves into office by promising a piece of the largesse of government to those identity groups. Meanwhile, the conservatives up there in D.C. are left attempting to explain to the American people why they need to eat their veggies and why they don't always get ice cream. In the meantime, Johnson is nearing it. He's getting close. Okay, let's do it. Let's pull it up. Come on. Johnson's got 207. That's a big Johnson. I mean, it's a big vote for, you know what I'm saying. Jeffries. Waters. Shut up. Just vote! Come on! Loser. What she says, the only candidate who represents the integrity of this House. I don't know who she said after that. The Democrats are applauding her. So it's 209 Johnson, 202 Jeffries. Stop making speeches, you grandstanding so-and-sos. Ooh, thank you, Patrick McHenry. Ha, ha, ha. Everybody wants to be a comedian toward the end here. That's 210. Nobody else has voted for anyone else, by the way. Might as well keep it here. I think he's got 212 now. It says 211 there, but I think it's up to 212. Yeah, it is 212.
C-SPAN's at 214.
You're on C-SPAN?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. No, they don't. You do.
Oh,
All right. I think he's got him, right?
one more. Bueller.
Be funny if one of the end guys. Here he is. Ladies and gentlemen, the Speaker of the House of the United States Representative. Yay! Is it just me?
Vote.
Mike Johnson has achieved the amount of votes necessary to take him over the top. We now have a new Speaker of the House of Representatives. His name is Mike Johnson. He's from Louisiana. And there you go. You know what that's going to mean for your life?
Nothing.
Nothing. Omnibus spending package is set to come. All right, so there you go. Mike Johnson, it's a clean slate. So apparently Republicans got their poopy in order, and they decided to get themselves a Speaker of the House without further embarrassment and without further delay, and they have done so. Your thoughts on all of this? It is done and done. Mike Johnson is the next Speaker of the House, and now we can move on and not think about this again.
So this is sort of like Kiefer Sutherland becoming the president.
I mean, how many times did we think about it when Kevin McCarthy was Speaker of the House until, well, two times. One, there was a spending clash back in June that actually the Republicans came out pretty good on with regard to Joe Biden and his increased spending ways. Then he lost his mind and decided to let everybody go home for 6 weeks when they still didn't have appropriations bills taken care of, thinking that he could get away with it without any recourse. Well, he set the stage back in January for said recourse, and he got his comeuppance, and he's no longer Speaker.
Mike Johnson, creator of his own demise.
Well, that's right. He, I said yesterday he was hoisted by his own petard. By the way, someone asked me, a petard is a bomb. It's an old school terminology for a bomb. So if you try to set a bomb laying a trap for someone else and that bomb goes off, you are hoisted by your own petard. It was a phrase popularized by William Shakespeare. And most certainly Kevin McCarthy was hoisted by his own petard, inasmuch as he allowed for the rules that ultimately got him booted out of office. Now we have a Speaker, Mike Johnson, who, by all accounts, is a conservative fellow. Here's what I would tell you. His conservatism doesn't mean a hell of a lot. What means more to me is his agreement with and ability to abide by the basic rules of the House of Representatives and regular order. Regular order includes passing an actual budget on an annual basis, something that we haven't actually done in the last 30 years. And people that don't follow politics as closely as you or I are sitting there scratching their heads wondering, what's Murphy talking about? What's this dunderhead on the radio talking about? Of course we pass a budget every year. No, we don't. And no, we haven't. We haven't been under regular order. Well, we have been under regular order for the most part this year. But until this year, we haven't been under regular order in Democrat-led House of Representative sessions, and I don't know when. We haven't really passed a budget since the 1990s. So hopefully we'll see these things happen. And none of it has to do with the Speaker's conservative credentials. All of it has to do with his willingness to abide by the rules of the Speaker's office, the rules of the House of Representatives, and demanding that his members do the same. Now, as far as agenda setting goes, I'm very pleased with the Speaker, the new Speaker, because he does have an agenda that I think will be focused on fiscal, that's fiscal, there's no three syllables, fiscal responsibility. We'll focus on spending less on the federal level and only spending on those priorities that merit our money or our borrowing. We cannot continue to borrow $2 trillion a year or anywhere near $2 trillion a year and expect to continue as a country. And hopefully Mike Johnson understands that. Bill says, keep your petard away from Mike Johnson.
That's what she said.
And that's what she said. 5650, they got back to regular order this year, actually, for the most part. Regular order is a lot messier than the methods that they were using, but they did abandon they abandoned regular order years and years ago. Your reaction, I'm opening up the phone lines if you have any reaction or if you want to talk about something else. 615-737-9986, 615-737-9986. Congratulations to Speaker Mike Johnson of Louisiana, the new Speaker of the 18th Congress. I think that's right. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I want to spend a moment telling you about one aspect of what United Structural Systems does and how they can benefit you in your home. Obviously, if you've got foundation issues or waterproofing issues, you know who to call, and that is USS. But let's talk for a moment about concrete leveling. You know, settling sidewalks or driveways are a big problem in Middle Tennessee. Sinking slabs or patio steps, that's a problem as well. If you've noticed that you've seen this sinking happening, if you've got sidewalks or patios that are shifting, if you've got your driveway sinking in certain areas, if you've noticed cracks that are disleveling or getting unlevel, you know, they've got like an inch gap or whatever, that is all due to the ground underneath the concrete settling and allowing that concrete to settle. And it's time to get something done about it without having to rip that concrete up and start over. Let's talk about the Polylift system. It's less expensive than concrete replacement. It has a higher load capacity than traditional approaches, such as mud jacking. There's no color change in the concrete, no damage to the grass or the landscaping. Work is completed in a couple of hours, and you can walk on it immediately and drive on it in 30 minutes. I've seen the Polylift system in action, and boy, oh boy, is it good at what it does, and it could cost you a lot less money. I'm talking thousands of dollars less money. Don't replace it. Raise it with the Polylift system with USS, United Structural Systems. Go to USSTN.com for more information or 615-488-7855, 488-7855 for USS. They guarantee their best. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you. It's 106 and a good afternoon. Hope you're doing well. We just got done with the Libertarian Lunch on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is Wednesday, October 25. It's our episode 441. We have until 3 o'clock today. We'll hand off to Brian Wilton at that time. He's got the drive from 3 until 7. It's a part of live and local, information-fueled, and opinion-driven news talk radio for the masses on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Cameron Smith up in an hour to discuss the newly elected speaker, amongst other things. If you wish to opine on the new Speaker of the House, most of us did not know who this guy was 24 hours ago, and now he is third in line to the presidency of the United States of America. He is Mike Johnson of Louisiana, 615-737-9986. I get the impression that most of you, even those of you joking around about it on the super text line, that most of you, and I would include myself in this number, as a matter of fact, we're relieved. We're relieved that we, more than anything, don't have to talk about this anymore. I mean, I hate to put it that way, but that's the way I feel about it. The speakership should be one of function as opposed to a personality contest. I am glad that we saw a more conservative-minded speaker selected. I think that's a good thing. I think far too often you get squishes. I mean, you get a bunch of squishes. You get a moderate squish as a Speaker of the House, and they don't know how to handle it when Democrats raise ruckus because they are not in the majority. Democrats don't like being in the minority very much. That said, we have a speaker. Let's see what he does with it. Here's what I would anticipate. I would not anticipate that you'll see appropriations bills coming fast and furious out of the House of Representatives. I don't know that they have time. Maybe they do. Kevin McCarthy, as one of his final acts as Speaker, and one of the things that created the kerfluffle that was broad enough that got him booted out of that position, was to give a 45-day additional amount of time in order to try to get some of those appropriations bills that were not passed by the time the fiscal year ended over to the United States Senate, where they would have died anyway. Obviously, the Senate is a different animal, considering that it's controlled by Chuck Schumer and the Democrats because of the 50-50 split. That said, for now, it's great news out of the House of Representatives as Mike Johnson has been elected on a vote of 220 to 209 to be the next Speaker of the House of Representatives. So there was what is that? That's 6 people that did not vote. There are 2 absent. There are 2 vacant seats, meaning that 4 individuals were not in the body. And we'll try to figure out who those folks were exactly. In the meantime, what did I lose that story? Oh, I wanted to share this story with you. It was so good. Oh, I seem to have lost it. Okay. So a new poll shows New Yorkers know who to blame when it comes to their migrant invasion, and that's their words, not mine. I would call it an illegal alien invasion. New Yorkers have recently been polled on exactly who they blame with regard to who's responsible for that invasion. I've got that poll up for you coming up in just a couple of minutes. And then this. We talked a good bit over the spring about Anheuser-Busch, more specifically about Bud Light. Bud Light made the horrific, tactical, public relations disastrous error to thumb their nose, to virtually spit on their clientele for the benefit of being woke. And in doing so, with an advertising campaign centered around a transgendered individual by the name of Dylan Mulvaney, they pushed aside their base customers for the purpose of advancing a woke agenda. And they have paid a heavy price. I've never been an Anheuser-Busch fan necessarily, generally, and I've certainly never been a Bud Light fan. But I think that's fair analysis that they have paid the heavy price because of the errors of their public relations ways. Well, in an effort to get back into the good graces of their base of customer, Bud Light has teamed up with UFC, the organization, and Dana White, the president and CEO of UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, making Bud Light the official beer sponsor of UFC. And I'm wondering, and I don't follow UFC that much. I'm wondering how many of you do, and if you do, what your expectation is or what your reaction to this is. Dana White was on Hannity last night where he, quote, set the record straight about the relationship between UFC. And I'm wondering if you feel like that Dana White has a point. Saying last night on Sean Hannity's show, when you do sponsorships, you definitely do sponsorships for money. Money is a part of it, but money was not the decision-making factor, White told Fox News. There's more to being aligned with a sponsor like that. For as long as I'm going to be, there are many other things that are important to me other than just the money. And the people that were involved in this negotiation on every side absolutely positively know that my choice was not determined by money. The Mixed Martial Arts Organization revealed that it struck a multi-year deal with Anheuser-Busch involving the Bud Light brand having a heavy presence with UFC's content in its broadcast and online beginning in 2024. Sources close to the deal reportedly told ESPN that it was the biggest marketing sponsorship agreement in UFC history. I mean, a multi-million-dollar agreement, obviously. The decision comes following media and customer backlash against the decision by Bud Light, as I mentioned, to involve and endorse transgender influencer, quote-unquote, Dylan Mulvaney. White, for his part, explained why he was able to look past certain recent controversy surrounding Anheuser-Busch and their core values. Quote, and this is the part that I want you to tell me if it rings hollow with you, if it rings true with you, where you are on it. They were the first beer company that we did business with. They were our first big sponsor when we got started, and now we're back with them. Okay, that's all well and good. I knew all the controversy and everything else, but for myself, going into a long-term deal with another sponsor, I wanted to be with somebody I'm actually aligned with. They employ 65,000 Americans. They have thousands of veterans that work for them. They spend $700 million a year with U.S. farmers using their crops to make their product and many, many other great things that Anheuser-Busch has done in this country. He also applauded their support for Folds of Honor, a nonprofit organization that provides scholarship to spouses and children of fallen or disabled veterans and first responders. I'm big into law enforcement and the military, and over the last few years, I don't know how many years, they've spent like $45 million taking care of these servicemen and first responders who've died, taking care of their families, scholarships for their children, and things like that. So I'm very aligned with Anheuser-Busch. Do you know when there's big disasters, they shut part of the plant down, they turn it into a water bottling facility. They've bottled like 100 million bottles of water they've sent out to disaster areas. I'm going to focus on the good that they do. They're very aligned in many different areas, and that's why they're going to be my partner over the next six years. I've been inspired by Dana White to ask you this question. Do you think Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch have suffered enough? Have they suffered enough? Is the question. 615-737-9986. If you have a response to that. Or is it never enough? I was never a drinker of Bud Light, so I can't go back to something that I've never been at. I can't belly back up to the bar and order another one because I've never bellied up to the bar and ordered one to begin with. But for those of you that supported them in the past, I mean, they do good things with some of their money. I mean, from time to time, we've heard the stories about Anheuser-Busch shutting down bottling facilities and bottling water during times of natural disaster or need. I've heard those stories in the past. I've heard stories in the past of Anheuser-Busch and the good work that they have done with our veterans across the United States of America. I understand how angry and frustrated we are with the woke nature of that advertising campaign, but it always felt like something that was done off in a corner somewhere, unbeknownst to most of the employees at Anheuser-Busch. Does it matter to you that they do good work? Or will you choose to say, oh, hell no, we'll never forget? I mean, it feels like for some things we're willing to forgive and forget and move on. I mean, hell, most of you guys have forgiven the NFL, right? Haven't you? You Titans fans that listen to me, you NFL fans, I remember a time when there were jerseys burning in the backyard. But now it seems that NFL ratings are back up to where they were prior to all of the Black Lives Matter and Colin Kaepernick nonsensical kneeling and whatnot. And look, I gave them up for a couple of years, and I admit that I turn them on Sunday afternoons. I'm not that invested. I'm not invested in the NFL in the same way that I'm invested in the college game. I watch a lot more college football than I do NFL football, but seems to me the NFL has been forgiven after several years. Are you going to go so far as to forgive Bud Light, considering what Dana White and the UFC have done? I don't agree. I don't believe him when he says it's not money motivated. I believe it most certainly is money motivated. Let's get your take on it. 615-737-9986. We'll get to your telephone calls momentarily right after this. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 122 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We'll get back to our conversation regarding Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch coming up in just a moment. Back to Washington, D.C. right now. My good friend, Representative Gary Palmer's on the line. Gary's in leadership. He's the policy chairman of the Republican caucus, and he joins us very briefly. And I know you have limited time, Gary. Tell me what you know about Representative Mike Johnson, now Speaker Mike Johnson, and are you excited about this selection?
I'm very excited. I knew Mike before I got elected to Congress. We were both very involved in the think tank world. Mike is a brilliant man, constitutional lawyer, a fantastic communicator. While I'm very excited to have him as Speaker and excited for the country, everybody needs to be praying for his family because this is honestly one of the worst jobs in the country. And I'm just grateful that he's willing to take on this responsibility.
Gary, tell us how we got here and how it happened so quickly when Mike Johnson was the name that was settled on within the caucus. Was it a matter of two things coming together? One, a conservative-minded individual willing to put his hat in the ring, and then, recognition that the country was ready to move on and get another speaker selected? I mean, just walk us through what you can about the closed-door meetings that led to this vote today.
Well, there weren't any closed-door meetings. It was a matter of when Jordan pulled out that we had a new candidate for him. As you know, I put my name in the hat, and I did it for a specific reason because I thought there were things that we needed to have an honest discussion about in our conference, particularly about how we go forward with the appropriations process, and so we don't keep getting to these fiscal cliffs and wind up with these massive omnibus bills. And Mike and I talked before our candidate forum, and I had a sense all along that he was the right guy. And I couldn't tell him what I'd planned to do, but I knew he was the right guy. I'm going to have to go now.
I know you've got to run. I know Hakeem is – yep. Very good. Gary Palmer is leaving us because he's got to get back to the floor. He was speaking to us literally from just off the floor of the House of Representatives in a cloakroom, and he's now getting back to the – they call them the cloakrooms. These are – the little rooms right off of the floor of the speakers or the House. What I want to do is I want to try to carry these remarks if we possibly can, Bell. You're gonna have to move it over to C-SPAN if you want to carry the remarks because you're not gonna get uninterrupted remarks from the new Speaker of the House of Representatives from those schmucks over at #NeverCNN. But here he goes. He has taken the gavel. He is stepping up to the Speaker's chair. Hakeem Jeffries is getting his Democrat hiney out of the way and making way for Big Johnson. That's Big Mike Johnson, who is now the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Getting robust applause from members of the House. And let's hear our first remarks from Speaker Mike Johnson. Man, sounds like a couple of harumphs. Harumph, harumph, harumph. I didn't get a harumph out of you. Beleaguered. Yeah, sure. C-SPAN's referring to him as Speaker-elect. Susan, now I'll give her a round of applause. Way to go, Susan. That's the lady you keep hearing. Johnson. Johnson. Jones. Johnson. Ha ha ha.
think all of our parents are proud of what we're called to do here. I think all the American people at one time had great pride in this institution, but right now, that's in jeopardy. And we have a challenge before us right now to rebuild and restore that trust. This is a beautiful country. It's the beauty of America that allows a firefighter's kid like me to come here and serve in this sacred chamber where great men and women have served before all of us and strive together to build and then preserve what Lincoln did refer to as the last best hope of man on earth. We stand at a very dangerous time. I'm stating the obvious. We all know that. The world is in turmoil. But a strong America is good for the entire world.
You're listening to Mike Johnson, the newly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives,
Freedom, and we must
on
preserve
Super
this
Talk,
grand experiment in
99.7 WT.
self-governance. It still is.
Stay right
We're
here
only
for just a second.
247 years into this grand experiment. We don't know how long it will last, but we do know that the founders told us to take good care of it. I want to tell all my colleagues here what I told the Republicans in that room last night. I don't believe there are any coincidences in a matter like this. I believe that Scripture, the Bible, is very clear. That God is the one that raises up those in authority. He raised up each of you, all of us. And I believe that God has ordained and allowed each one of us to be brought here for this specific moment in this time. This is my belief. I believe that each one of us has a huge responsibility today to use the gifts that God has given us to serve the extraordinary people of this great country, and they deserve it. And to ensure that our republic remains standing as the great beacon of light and hope and freedom in a world that desperately needs it.
All right, with that, we will leave it there. I think he's got a few other remarks, but what we'll do is take a quick time out. We'll be back and continue on Super Talk 99.7 WTN as we've been listening to Mike Johnson, who's the newly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives. For what it's worth, we can go about our daily lives and not care about who the Speaker of the House is moving forward. I mean, right? I mean, I don't mean to be a cynic on it, but that's where I'm at on it. It's 1:34 on Super Talk. Yeah. If you have pain anywhere on your person, you owe it to yourself to make the call that so many others have made to the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. Now, they say back, neck, and chronic pain, but it really is anywhere that it hurts on your person because it's more than just spinal relief nowadays. They have red light therapy, spinal decompression, a Class 5 laser system, all designed to reduce inflammation in the body, reduce pain, swelling, and accelerate healing. So regardless of where your pain is, I promise you they can help you at the Dr. Gill Center, and you can eliminate having to take pills in your life and certainly eliminate the possibility of surgery down the road with a pain-free life. Thank you to the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. Say the words pain relief when you make the call that so many others have made to the Dr. Gill Center to schedule that appointment today. You'll be happy you did, and you'll receive a special discount when you do. Tell them that I sent you to the Dr. Gill Center. 615-882-4838, 882-4838. It's the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. Newly elected Speaker of the House Mike Johnson is currently addressing a session of Congress as they have voted him into the Speaker's chair. I want to go back to this. Would you do me a favor, Bell, and also stream this, because those listening on the stream were telling me that they weren't able to hear this. So let's. He's talking about some specifics about what to do to get America back on track, specifically border security and getting our financial house in order.
In his farewell address, thank you. In his farewell address, President Reagan explained the secret of his rapport with people. And I like to paraphrase his explanation all the time. He said, they call me the great communicator, but I really wasn't that. He said, I was just communicating great things. And they're the same great things that have guided our nation since its founding. What are those great things? I call them the 7 core principles of American conservatism, but let me concede to you all, I think it's really quintessentially the core principles of our nation. I boil them down to individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, and human dignity. Those are the foundations that made us the extraordinary nation that we are. And you and I today are the stewards of those principles. The things that have made us the freest, most powerful, most successful nation in the history of the world. The things that have made us truly exceptional. In this time of great crisis, it is our duty to work together, as previous generations of great leaders have, to face these great challenges and solve these great problems. I will conclude with this. The job of the Speaker of the House is to serve the whole body, and I will. But I've made a commitment to my colleagues here that this Speaker's office is going to be known for decentralizing the power here. My office is going to be known for members being more involved and having more influence in our processes and all the major decisions that are made here, for predictable processes and regular order. We owe that to the people. That's right. And I want to make this commitment to you, to my colleagues here and on the other side of the aisle as well. My office is going to be known for trust and transparency and accountability, for good stewardship of the people's treasure, for the honesty and integrity that is incumbent upon us, all of us, here in the people's house. Our system of government is not a perfect system. It's got a lot of challenges, but it is still the best one in the world, and we have an opportunity to preserve it. Last thing I'm going to say is a message to the rest of the world. They have been watching this drama play out for a few weeks. We've learned a lot of lessons, but you know what? Through adversity, it makes you stronger. And we want our allies around the world to know that this body of lawmakers is reporting again to our duty stations. Let the enemies of freedom around the world hear us loud and clear. The People's House is back in business.
Hold on to your wallets.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't mean to be a cynic, but, if the People's House is back in business, that means he said it, overspending money.
We will do our duty here. We will serve you well. We will govern well, and we'll make you proud in this institution again. We're going to fight every day to make sure that is true. I look forward to the days ahead. I genuinely believe in my heart that the best days of America are still ahead of us. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
All right, so there's Representative Mike Johnson, who has been addressing a session of the House of Representatives after being elected as the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and they're now back open for business, so you might want to watch out for your wallets. We were discussing a number of issues, but primarily focused on this vote today, as finally they settled on a Speaker. This was after, as you well know, this was the fourth Speaker selection by the Republican majority. Kevin McCarthy received the boot after a motion to vacate. And in the aftermath of that, Steve Scalise was originally elected by the caucus. He did not even get to a floor vote. Moved on to Jim Jordan, who did see a floor vote. Tom Emmer did not get to a floor vote before he removed his name from consideration. There are a few other people that threw their hats in the ring, but they never got a majority of the caucus. And then finally they settled on Mike Johnson. And immediately upon doing so, pundits like myself ran to the Google machine to find out who the hell Mike Johnson was and exactly what he was all about. And we now know, seems like a nice enough guy. He's 51 years of age, is a husband and father. He's from Louisiana, which is a red state. His credentials are pretty good in terms of his conservative bona fides. He's also a Trump supporter, which I know is going to please our next guest, Cameron Smith, not Sexton. Not Sexton, Smith. I ruined the joke. I ruined the joke with the...
I'm the Speaker of the House now?
You are not.
Thank you.
You are not. Thank goodness. We actually got it. We got it real conservative in there.
Oh, jeez.
Cameron joining us a little bit early to discuss the selection of Mike Johnson as Speaker. And we'll get back to Bud Light in just a moment. You guys hang in there if you're holding for Bud Light, because I know I brought that subject up. Your thoughts?
First, my mama texted me and said you were getting fired up on the radio, so I should sit far away.
Fired up?
I don't know.
I'm all good.
Mama was listening.
Oh, well. Hey, Mama.
But I love Mike Johnson. Like, he is fantastic. I got to know him running the House Republican Policy Committee. He is a smart attorney, a policy nerd. It reminds me a little bit of our mutual friend, Representative Gary Palmer, in terms of policy acumen and ability to actually craft this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of my gripes about Kevin McCarthy was he's not a policy guy. He was a people guy. And so to have somebody in the speaker's chair who understands policy very well is super exciting for me. And, man, I'm thrilled. This is great.
What does being a conservative mean? And I don't mean to immediately turn curmudgeon, but I know that we have focused so much over the last 3 weeks on the personal policy priorities of the individuals involved, and I guess that's a part. I mean, that's obviously a part of it. But how much do their priorities matter when it comes to being a speaker?
So most of it's process, right? It's what comes to the floor. Typically, the speaker more or less gets to pick the rules committee. The rules committee determines what the rule is for considering legislation on the floor, how it's going to be brought to the floor. So, for example, let's say the Senate votes on a funding package for Israel and Ukraine, right? Well, the speaker can say, you know what? Rather than take up that bill and just have a straight up or down vote, we're going to put a bill on the floor that has funding for Israel. And then we're going to kick back to the Senate. And so that is a strategic position. My only concern about Mike Johnson is he has not been in a role where that strategy was very important. He has not been a chairman that had to deal with legislative differences. He has not been in a role where he had to do a lot of the back and forth and making of the legislative sausage, if you will. And that's tough.
Why haven't we heard about Mike Johnson before yesterday, do you think?
My best guess is that you can't name more than maybe 20 members of the House Republican Conference. I mean, most people can't. That's normal. He's a rank and file member from Louisiana. And so the idea that everyone has to be high profile in order to be effective isn't true. But he's just not a flashy media person. In fact, here's a good example. He authored the amicus brief that the left is roundly going after him for and saying, hey, these state laws that were enacted during COVID were unconstitutional. Mm-hmm. Mike Johnson's smart enough to say, we should stay away from this fraudulent election stuff and say these laws weren't enacted in a constitutional way and we should attack them. And nobody's picking up on that nuance, but he's a very savvy guy and understands how the law works, understands process, and frankly, he's a guy of high character who's not going to just stick out lies and say, believe this is true if it's not true.
Well, but he was front and center in challenging the electors during that process by saying that, and I said as much, that states that went against their very laws were going against the fabric of the Constitution of the United States when they did so, and they used COVID as an excuse to do it. Ultimately, the courts chose not to take those to the ultimate conclusion that they threw those electors out, but that's the way that – what fascinates me is that there are many on, social media and on the Talking Head networks, the hashtag Never CNNs of the world, that use this as an example of, well, he doesn't really believe in the Constitution. This is an example of how you follow the law and how the process works, and how, if it doesn't work in your favor, you can completely disagree with the outcome,
right,
but at the same time be respectful of the constitutional process.
And you know how critical I've been of folks that just say stuff because of feels, right? I mean, I have been very outspoken and critical. The way Mike Johnson handled it and said, I do not believe these laws themselves were constitutional and they are worthy of legal challenge, is consistent with what I think folks can do and should do. They avail themselves of the processes.
That's what the third branch is for.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And so that's where, Democrats are like, he's an election denier. He's all this. I'm like, no. He authored a brief consistent with a legal challenge that was ultimately unsuccessful, but that's a perfectly legitimate thing to do from a process standpoint, and so I don't see that as disqualifying.
Dave, you've hung in there for a minute or two, and we were talking Bud Light when you made the call, so I want to get to you real quick. David is in Hendersonville. Hey, David, how are you?
I'm doing good, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I asked a question, and I just threw it out there, and a lot of people responded. Then we immediately had to go to this speech, and the question was simple. Has Bud Light suffered enough, or is there more suffering to come for Bud Light based on the era of their wokeness ways?
I think I've thrown back a mini of Bud Light and double-fisted many nights with them, but
Roll
I
Tide.
think if we could give them another chance, but something I think they need to come out and do, and they've needed to do it from the get-go, is just come out and apologize. Don't do your fancy little commercials, your Patriot commercials. Apologize.
I get it. I guess I hear it. What apology? I mean, I don't mean to be argumentative, but what apology would be good enough for the American man? I mean, what do you want them to do? Grovel?
Yes.
Well, not grovel. Just come out and say, look, we.
What are they?
We made a
what are they sorry for?
For trying to for putting their hat into something they shouldn't have been with. They shouldn't have stuck their hand in the cookie jar when the cookie jar is what fed them.
Well, let me help you out.
Don't take somebody's lunch money. Don't take somebody's lunch money and then go buy lunch and eat it right there in front of them.
Okay. All right. Well, no, asked and answered. I don't know. At some stage, I'm not a player in this game, right? Because I don't drink Bud Light. I've never drank Bud Light. I really don't drink a lot of. I mean, I drink Anheuser-Busch product when I'm at a gathering where people are serving Anheuser-Busch product for free, or someone is giving me one at their house.
Let me help my friend out there, the double fister out there. They need to apologize for hiring people that hated their core customer. Like we saw that executive that said, basically, our core customer we don't like, and we want to appeal to everyone else at their expense, and to say, hey, we know who you are. We've heard loud and clear. We got it wrong, and we won't do it again.
Yeah, but then none of the transgenders will drink Anheuser-Busch anymore.
They don't anyway.
That's true. They're more of a White Claw crowd, I think.
Man,
that's what I think. I don't know.
Driving in on Music Row,
Zima.
I saw a dude with a box of White Claw on the corner.
He couldn't handle the Zima. Dylan Mulvaney couldn't handle the Zima, and you well know it.
That's gross.
153 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Two locations to serve you. Savory Spice is there for you. Friends, I was out at Savory Spice just a couple of weeks ago, and I smelled the smells, and I saw the sights, and man, oh man, things are cooking at Savory Spice. They've got great it occurred to me, and I was telling Holly about this when I was standing in her shop, that you really can appeal to the master chefs. The master chefs know where to go get spices, and they go get spices at Savory Spice, whether it's their location in downtown Franklin just off the square or their location in L&L Market. I mean, that is the spice shop of choice for the chefs around the area. But even for those of you that don't really know a lot about cooking or your way around the kitchen, they can help you too, because they've got pre-made spices. They have pre-made blends that all you need to do is follow the instructions on the back of the bag or the back of the box, and you'll make a delicious meal for you and your family. It will be so good. You'll get the compliments, and you deserve them. But also Savory Spice deserves a few of those as well. So go by and see them at Savory Spice. Once again, 2 locations just off the square in Franklin or in L&L Market in Nashville. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only Savory Spice.